Bad internet. That's right.
All right, let's get to the questions from our beloved audience for the final time before Scott leaves for Russia. And the first question comes from Russia. Dennis in St. Petersburg. Seems that you consider only nuclear weapons while talking about arms control. Don't you think that a treaty must be integral and include biological weapons also, assuming 300 plus U.S. biological labs all over the world?
I mean, I understand the question. I understand why you're asking the question, and it makes sense. But no, from a negotiating standpoint, a compliance verification standpoint, these are two completely different problem sets, and you couldn't. There's no way you could blend the two treaties. It makes no sense. I think you need separate treaties. You need a nuclear disarmament treaty with specific verification regimes put in place to ensure compliance, and you also need what happened with the biological is they did an international treaty, the biological toxin and weapons convention, that's supposed to get rid of all this stuff. So there's not a bilateral treaty between the United States and Russia. Maybe Russia needs to insist on that. But then what do you do with a treaty that everybody signed and under, it's been, it's part of the United Nations system now, therefore it's international law. It's supposed to be binding, but we saw the United States just violate it. And it has horrible, poor compliance verification measures. And another problem with biological is that there's a lot of dual purpose activities in there. Major pharmaceutical companies. One of the reasons why the Biological Toxic Weapons Convention isn't that strong is pharmaceutical companies say we're not letting inspectors in here. You don't get to come in here. We're not giving away our trade secrets. And because they're private companies, it's hard to do a treaty that forces them to do something like that. So it's just a completely different problem set. But Dennis brings up a good point. Given the abysmal record of the United States when it comes to these to these biolabs the United States has put in, and the evidence that Russia has accumulated, I do think that we being the world needs to take another look at how we're doing biological weapons, arms control, and compliance, et cetera, because clearly the United States was just doing its own thing with little regard for international law, and this is problematic. So, but here's the hard part: where are you going to do it? In the United Nations, that the institution that the United States delayed issuing Lavrov his visa to the last second, an institution where the United States is conspiring to get Russia kicked off the Security Council. I mean, the United Nations is fundamentally broke, which is why I think the way to go forward is for Russia and the United States to have a bilateral treaty, because that's the only way Russia is ever going to be able to trust the United States is through a bilateral treaty that goes beyond the Biological Toxin Weapons Convention and gives Russians the ability to, do the kind of intrusive on-site inspection. Remember, it's reciprocal. So the Russians, what you demand, you have to give. And so the Russians may also put up some red flags saying, well, we're not going to do that. But at least the Russians would be able to better define a level of compliance verification that would at least give them confidence that the United States isn't continuing down the path that they obviously were when they were putting these biological labs in Ukraine and elsewhere.
All right. So it was a good, fair question, but the answer is no. Beef Webster somewhere on Earth wants to know the following. Can the inspector comment on the leak claiming the U.S. considered assassinating Wagner commanders in Africa? If such actions were to take place, what would stop Wagner from attacking U.S. forces across Africa?
Live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean, that's one of the problems with escalation of this nature. The United States, first of all, we killed Qasem Soleimani, a Ukrainian, an Iranian government official. I mean, one of the major government officials. We assassinated him in Baghdad. So, now that we've labeled Wagner as a criminal enterprise, these are criminals, and so, there's little to stop the United States from doing it, except the concerns about retaliation, and that might be the best deterrence. I think Wagner is starting to get a much deserved reputation for being a serious organization, a professional organization. But it's also Russian. So it's not just Wagner. If you attack Wagner in Africa and Wagner's there doing the bidding of the Russian government, you're attacking Russia, which means you're opening yourself up to that kind of retaliation. The good news is that Russia is very good at escalation management, and they don't take the bait. And so, who knows what the future is going to. Hopefully, there will be people in Washington, D.C. that recognize that beginning the process of assassinating military commanders is stupid. And I have to tell you, if I was a defense attaché in Africa or anywhere in the world, or if I were military forces deployed into Africa, I'd be telling them, don't even think about it, guys, because it's not your neck on the line. It's ours. We're out here in Africa now, and you're setting us up to get killed as well. It's just stupidity.
Well, the question was actually worded rather vaguely. It was considered. There's a lot of people involved in the decision-making process. Do you know anything specific about to what extent it was considered, how close it came? I mean, very often people who are involved in the process, there may be individuals who have crazy ideas and then it gets knocked down,
I'm answering hypothetically because I'm responding to the question. I don't have any insight into this whatsoever. I haven't read the article. I don't know anything. First time I heard about it is the question. So I'm just riffing off the question.
Okay. So the next question is from some other Beto in Puerto Rico, or as we say in Espanol, Puerto Rico. During the first half of the 20th century, humanity suffered through two devastating world wars and wars between Russia and Japan, Japan and China, the 1918 U.S. and U.K. invasion of Russia, etc. Since then, we've seen countless asymmetric and proxy wars, but not one direct hot conflict between major military peers. Should we thank nuclear weapons for that?
I mean, it's a good question.
It is.
But I reject the premise. How can you thank that which can kill everything? I mean, no, because that legitimizes nuclear weapons. And we can't legitimize nuclear weapons. One would have thought that after experiencing the Second World War and the level of violence that took place without nuclear weapons, excusing for a moment Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that we would have realized that major total war between major powers is just the ultimate expression of stupidity. But it is what it is. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think we can acknowledge that if Russia didn't have a nuclear deterrent, that NATO would be involved in the Ukrainian conflict directly. That the only thing that keeps NATO out of Ukraine is Russia's nuclear deterrent. I think we can say that. And if you're a Russian, you're probably saying, thank God we have nuclear weapons, which makes, of course, my task and others who promote disarmament extraordinarily hard. How do you argue against that? Hey, guys, congratulations. You kept NATO out of Ukraine because you have a nuclear deterrent. Oh, by the way, I'm on a book tour promoting nuclear disarmament. I mean, this is going to be a hard sell. But again, I don't think anybody at this point in time is promoting nuclear disarmament in a vacuum, meaning no one could have any credibility to go to Russia and say, hey, get rid of all your nuclear weapons right now because it's the right thing to do. They're going to say, no, it's not. But what we can say is you need to recapture arms control. You need to keep the current processes alive and refine them, make them better while we repair relations and create confidence building measures, etc., that will de-emphasize nuclear weapons and the need for nuclear weapons and lead to a point where we can begin, once again, nuclear reductions with a goal to getting to zero. Whether we'll be able to ever get to zero, I don't know. But I would like a situation where we don't have to wake up every morning worrying about whether or not some itchy trigger finger with a mistake is going to fire nukes and kill us all. That's where I'd like to get. To get there is a big journey, but journeys begin with the first step. And that's what we're going to be trying to do here, is begin the first step of creating the conditions where people will consider the possibility, even if it's heavily caveated, meaning that we'll consider it, but X, Y, and Z have to happen. At least now we know that. Now we know what we have to do: make X, Y, and Z happen, so they can consider it. But right now, it's not happening. Arms control is dying. Nuclear weapons are becoming, more and more attractive. I mean, not attractive in terms of people like it, but when you have Dmitry Medvedev, the former president of Russia, doing a conference saying, the Russian leaders have to have a steady hand over these weapons, and people need to know that when the time comes, when we have to use these weapons, that hand will do its job without any hesitation. That scared the crap out of me. I mean, it's a true statement, but it's just like, why are we talking about this, guys? Why are we talking about? Why does he feel the need to say this? Because the Russian nuclear doctrine says if conventional force is assembled that threatens the existential survival of Russia, Russia will use all the weapons necessary, including their nuclear weapons, to terminate that threat. And right now you have U.S. Congress passing a law called the Victory in Ukraine resolution that says it's U.S. policy for Ukraine to seize the Crimea. That's Russia. That's like Russia saying, hey, it's Russian policy to allow the Mexicans to take Texas. You think America's going to sit there and go, yeah, that's all right. No big deal. No, we'd say, hell no, we'll nuke you. So we're deliberately creating an environment that's provoking Russia to even have to contemplate the conditions under which that nuclear weapons could be used. We shouldn't be doing this. We should be moving in the exact opposite direction.
It occurs to me that the argument that this questioner made might very well be Putin's position. So if you were to have that hypothetical meeting with him, would you be shocked if that's what he said to you?
Well, I doubt that Vladimir Putin would ever have a discussion about strategic nuclear deterrent. I mean, not with me, not with anybody. I mean, unless it's serious. I mean, at this point in time, we're talking about beginning a process of breaking down obstacles towards the American people and the Russian people getting to talk to one another. That has to happen. The Russians, one of the reasons why the Russians pulled out of, or at least froze New START treaty is the United States has a policy of, achieving the strategic defeat of Russia. And the Russians are like, well, then arms control is dead because we can't let you come and inspect our facilities, our strategic weapons, while you're seeking to achieve the strategic defeat of Russia. And so that's big boy stuff. That's adult stuff. And having a casual conversation with, no matter how well-meaning I am, no matter how well-informed I am, I'm not a policymaker. I don't make policy in the United States. I just don't see that. I think
so if the meeting
I could meet him, I think it would be, how you doing? How's the weather?
You talk about Van Cliburn, maybe.
We could talk about Van Cliburn, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, look.
Well, let us know. Let us know.
Go back to that photo. What American man, besides me, because I'm happily married, but what American man? I mean, look at those girls. Look how they're looking at him. I mean, he could be John Lennon. He could be Paul McCartney. He could be Ringo Starr, George Harrison. I mean, that's rock and roll, baby. But he's a classic pianist.
He's probably gay anyway, so I don't want to break their hearts.
Come on, Jeff. Why would you say that?
He seemed like, I'm not saying it like it's a bad thing, but he seemed like he might be gay. I've heard him talk.
Okay, I don't know.
All right,
Who cares? He plays a good piano.
Yeah. I don't want to break their hearts. Also, too, let them think there's a chance. All right. The next question comes from Raymond O. in Bedfordshire, England. Will Bakhmut be the toughest battle of the war, or are there fiercer ones to come? Have we reached the turning point yet?
Well, I mean, we won't be able to determine is this the turning point until it's all over. Those are conclusions that are reached once it's done. Then you look at the totality of the conflict and you say, oh, that was the turning point. So it's a little premature right now to say definitively that Bakhmut is the turning point. It's a tough battle. There hasn't been any battle tougher than Bakhmut. I mean, Mariupol was tough, but not like Bakhmut. And it has broken the back of the Ukrainian army. I don't see how the Ukrainians can have another battle like Bakhmut. they've burned up their resources. They've eaten up their manpower. They've eaten up their ammunition. And when I say it's broke the back of the Ukrainian army, that means just that. I mean, going forward, once Bakhmut falls, they're largely crippled. I mean, their air defense is gone. They don't have artillery. The majority of their qualified troops have been killed, captured, or wounded. The troops that they have are poorly trained, not prepared to do combined arms maneuver warfare on a meaningful scale. So, and the other thing you have to remember is that Bakhmut has been turned into this beehive, or I guess that's not the right anthill. I don't know, but it's a fortress that they've been digging into for 8, 9, 10 years now. So there's no other place in Ukraine that has had this level of preparation, this with the ability to defend with the tenacity that they have. Anything else after this won't, the Russians won't face as difficult a fight. Plus, the Ukrainians just won't be as good. And the Russians are accruing advantages. They're able right now to use their air power with almost no pushback from the Ukrainians. They have new weapons. These precision-guided glide bombs are slaughtering the Ukrainians as they seek to assemble their forces. So, no, I don't think there's going to be a battle going forward that's going to be as tough as Bakhmut, but we'll see. Who knows? Stalingrad was considered a turning point in the Second World War. That was fought in the 1942, 1943. War didn't end until May 1945.